Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where we often don't realize what we have until it's gone. There was once a woman who had a good man in her life, a man who loved her with quiet consistency, who showed up even when it wasn't convenient, who stayed through her storms without complaint. He wasn't flashy, he didn't make grand speeches, but every day, in 100 little ways, he showed her he cared, and she overlooked it. She thought he'd always be there. She thought love meant never having to say thank you, never having to try. She brushed off his compliments, dismissed his concerns, took his kindness as weakness. She didn't see how many times he bit his tongue, how often he put her first, how deeply he believed in her when she doubted herself. And then one day he was gone, not in some loud, dramatic exit. He didn't slam doors or make threats. He just stopped showing up for someone who no longer noticed his presence. At first she felt free, relieved even. She told herself she deserved more, something more exciting, more intense. But as days turned into weeks, the silence grew heavier. She stopped receiving the good morning texts, no more random check-ins. No one asking if she'd eaten, if she was okay, if she made it home safe. She began to feel it, not just the absence of a man, but the absence of genuine love. She missed the sound of his voice, the way he laughed at her jokes, the comfort of his arms, the peace his presence brought. She started scrolling through old messages, replaying memories, wondering how she let someone so rare slip away, and worst of all, she began to miss the version of herself that existed when she was loved by him, the softer, lighter version he brought out of her. She didn't lose him all at once. She lost him every time she rolled her eyes at his efforts, every time she chose silence over appreciation, every time she made him feel like he wasn't enough. And now she carries a new weight, regret. Because now she sees him in strangers, hears his voice in her dreams, and knows deep down that he was never the problem. This is not just her story, it's a lesson, a reminder that love is not a guarantee. A good heart will not wait forever, and if you take someone for granted long enough, one day they will give what you ignored to someone who sees its worth. So hold tight to the ones who care. Say thank you. Show love back, because sometimes when they're gone, all you'll have left is the pain of missing the person you thought would never leave. Thank you. She failed to recognize the small, consistent acts of love and support he gave. Every morning he would text her a simple good morning, and not just out of habit, but as a way of saying, I'm thinking of you first. When she had a long day, he would listen, not to fix things, but just to be present, just to let her feel heard. He remembered the little things, how she liked her coffee, the song that always made her smile, the way she preferred silence over talking when she was upset. He paid attention to details that she didn't even realize mattered. But because he did it so effortlessly, so quietly, it never felt grand or noticeable to her. His loyalty wasn't loud, and his love didn't come wrapped in dramatic gestures. Instead, it lived in the everyday moments, the way he waited for her even when she was late, the way he forgave things she never apologized for, the way he made sure she was safe, warm, and okay without needing thanks. She didn't see how he stayed even when she pushed him away, how he kept choosing her even when she made it hard. She thought love had to be bigger, louder, more obvious. She didn't understand that the truest love often comes dressed in consistency, in patience, in quiet endurance. And by the time she realized how much those small acts meant, he had already stopped doing them, because he had stopped being taken for granted. She believed he would always stay, no matter how little she gave back. Somewhere along the way, she convinced herself that his love was unconditional in a way that required no effort on her part. She thought his patience was endless, that his loyalty was unshakable, that no matter how distant, cold, or indifferent she became, he would remain. He had shown up so consistently that she began to confuse his devotion with obligation. She mistook his forgiveness for weakness, his silence for acceptance. She thought he loved her so much that he'd never walk away, even if she gave him every reason to. She didn't understand that even the strongest hearts grow tired, that even the kindest souls have limits. She assumed his love meant he didn't need reassurance, appreciation, or effort in return. So she stopped trying. She stopped checking in on his needs, stopped making him feel seen, valued, or chosen. She began to expect his presence like the rising sun, reliable, predictable, guaranteed. She didn't see that love is not a contract signed in permanence. It's a choice made daily by two people willing to show up for each other. She forgot that even the ones who love us deeply can reach a point where they quietly let go, not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. By the time she realized he wasn't someone who would stay no matter what, he was already gone. She had taken his steadiness as certainty, his endurance as permanence, and the hardest part was realizing that the man she assumed would never leave had finally chosen to stop waiting to be noticed. The relationship didn't end in a single explosive moment. It wasn't one big fight or a dramatic goodbye that tore them apart. It was slow, subtle, almost invisible at first, like a candle flickering lower with each gust of indifference, until one day it simply went out. She didn't notice the beginning of the end when he stopped telling her about his day. She didn't notice when he began to pause before replying to her messages, when the warmth in his voice grew quieter, or when his eyes stopped lighting up at the sight of her. Little by little his efforts shrank, not out of spite, but because he no longer felt seen or appreciated. He started withdrawing in pieces. First, he stopped sharing his thoughts. Then he stopped asking about hers. He began spending more time alone, more time in silence, and less time trying to reach a place where he felt constantly pushed away. The emotional distance between them grew inch by inch, day by day, but she didn't realize they were drifting because she was too used to him being the one who held them together. She believed that because he wasn't complaining, everything was fine. But he wasn't speaking up because he was tired of repeating himself to someone who wasn't listening. The goodbye came without a speech. One day she looked around and realized he had already left the relationship emotionally long before he physically walked away. That's how she lost him, not with one cruel word or one final act, but with 1,000 tiny moments where she chose not to show up, where she assumed he always would. She thought love would sound an alarm before it left. She didn't know it would tiptoe out so quietly. His absence highlighted his presence more than she ever imagined. When he was there, always available, always steady, she didn't think twice about it. She thought his check-ins were routine, his concern ordinary, his affection something that came naturally and endlessly. But once he was gone, once the calls stopped coming and the messages no longer lit up her phone, she felt the weight of his silence like a shadow that followed her everywhere. It was in the stillness of her mornings where there used to be a cheerful good morning. It was in the quiet of her nights where his voice once made her feel safe. Suddenly, the little things she used to overlook became the very things she craved. She missed his questions about her day, his reminders to take care of herself, the way he used to sense her moods even before she spoke. At first, she didn't understand what was missing. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, but it was deep. She found herself reaching for her phone, only to remember he was no longer on the other end. She would catch herself thinking of something to tell him, only to be hit with the truth. He wasn't listening anymore. His absence made her see what she had taken for granted, a man who made her life softer, steadier, and warmer without needing recognition. She started to see all the ways he made her life better, not with grand gestures, but with quiet loyalty. And now that he wasn't there, the world felt colder, not because he had taken anything from her, but because he had once given her everything she didn't bother to cherish. Now she was surrounded by reminders of someone who used to be everywhere in her life, and now was nowhere to be found. Everyday moments began to trigger memories of what she lost. It didn't take a song or a place or a date to remind her of him. Everything did. She would hear laughter in a cafe and think of the way he used to laugh at her stories, even the ones she thought weren't that funny. She'd walk past someone wearing his cologne and be hit with a wave of memories so vivid it made her stop in her tracks. Even the mundane started to carry meaning. A movie they once watched together, the sound of his favorite artist playing softly in a store, a meal they used to share on lazy Sundays. She started noticing the empty chair across the table, the silence on car rides, the absence of someone who used to fill every space without ever needing to demand attention. She began to see him everywhere in strangers' gestures, in conversations she overheard, even in the way she caught herself using phrases he once said. These weren't just memories, they were ghosts of a love she had once lived in but never fully appreciated. What hurt the most was that she couldn't stop them. She couldn't control when or where he would come rushing back to her mind. She could be laughing with friends or sitting alone with a cup of coffee, and suddenly he'd be there not in person but in thought. She began to realize that forgetting him wasn't as easy as she had assumed. He had become a part of her rhythm, her routine, her story, and now, in his absence, every small detail of life reminded her of the one person who had once made everything feel full, before she allowed it to become empty. Regret settled in as she realized no one else could replicate the way he loved. She tried to move on, to distract herself with new faces and fresh conversations, but something was always missing. The connection felt shallow, the laughter forced, the comfort absent. She started noticing how no one else listened with the same quiet attention, how no one else remembered the small details, how no one else made her feel completely safe in her vulnerability. With every comparison, she came to understand that what she had with him wasn't ordinary, it was rare. She began to replay moments in her mind, searching for where it went wrong, when she stopped seeing his love for what it truly was. The more she reflected, the more she saw the depth of his devotion. He didn't love her in a way that demanded attention. He loved her in a way that made her feel known, without having to ask. He didn't just support her dreams, he believed in them even when she doubted herself. And now, in his absence, she saw clearly that his love had been both her anchor and her mirror, showing her the best version of herself. She started to feel the ache of everything she hadn't said, the thank yous left unsaid, the apologies never offered, the affection she withheld out of pride or complacency. The guilt grew heavier with each passing day, not because she had done something terrible, but because she had done nothing at all. She had stood still while someone gave her their all, and now, standing alone, she realized she couldn't go back. There was no message she could send, no apology strong enough to bring back the love she had once so casually dismissed, and that knowledge, that finality, became a constant echo of what she had lost, and what no one else could ever give her again. The experience taught her that love must be acknowledged and reciprocated, or it will vanish. She had once believed that love, once given, would stay no matter how it was treated, that someone who truly loved her would keep loving her through silence, neglect, and indifference. But losing him shattered that illusion. She came to understand that love is not a one-way gift. It's a living, breathing exchange that needs nourishment, words, time, presence, and gratitude. It needs to be felt, seen, and returned, not assumed and stored away like a possession. She realized that appreciation is not optional, it's essential, that even the strongest hearts eventually break when they are never told they matter, that even the most patient souls grow weary of giving without receiving. She looked back at all the times he had shown up for her and saw, with painful clarity, how few times she had shown up for him, not because she didn't care, but because she didn't think she had to. She thought love would endure even in a vacuum. But it didn't. It faded, quietly, painfully, and finally, now she sees that love is fragile in a way that requires conscious care. It thrives on attention, dies in neglect, and disappears when left unspoken. She learned the hardest way possible that a good person will not wait forever to be noticed, and when they're gone, all the regret in the world cannot bring them back. Her heart carries that truth now, not just as a memory of the man she lost, but as a lesson carved deep into her soul. A lesson that whispers every day, if you love someone, show it, because even the strongest love can walk away when it's not seen. In the end, the story of missing the man she took for granted is a powerful reminder that love is precious and fragile. It teaches us that appreciation isn't just a kind gesture. It's the foundation of any lasting relationship. When we fail to recognize the quiet sacrifices and steadfast presence of those who love us, we risk losing them forever. True love requires effort, attention, and gratitude every single day. If we wait until it's gone to realize what we had, the pain of regret will only deepen. So let us cherish those who stand by us, show them they matter, and never take their love for granted, because sometimes once it's gone for good. Thank you.